Hello, and welcome for a new episode. My name is Camilla, which I hope and think that you perhaps know by now, but still, good to remind you. As always, you can, if you haven't already, make yourself a cup of tea, a coffee, perhaps just some water, maybe plug the earphones in and go for a walk. Going out in nature, and just get some air in, some movement, if that feels like a good idea. This week's episode is going to be about what I labeled it as time management. Maybe it's not the correct one, but for me it was time management. So I wanted to share a bit of a struggle that I've had lately, which is around something so simple as creating a new routine. And it's so funny, I feel at least it's so funny how, I don't know if I'm the only one who has these issues, but when I have lots of time, which has kind of been the case now during COVID and the lockdowns and so on, I have a lot more time because of course there's fewer commitments and such in the agenda. So there's more time. And still, I have this feeling of getting less done. And so I was talking the other week with one of my dear friends from back home in Sweden. And we were talking about this paradox of having more time, but the feeling of getting less done. And also for me, the distinction between private and work, where I feel that I ought to, or that I should be working more and getting more things done and creating more new things, or that I should study more, or whatever it could be, work related stuff. I should roll out my yoga mat and practice more and come up with fancy classes and whatever else. Basically, anyways, that I should be working more. And then having that clear boundary over towards when it's private time and private things that I would do and want to do just for me that has nothing to do with work. And so having this paradox of having so much more time, one could think that lots of time to work, lots of time for private, and that has not really been the case for me. Instead, there was like nothing really happening on either, I felt. So I felt that I should be working more and doing more, but at the same time I was not in the mood, I was not motivated, I was not interested. But my bad conscience kind of stopped me from doing potentially private stuff. And so nothing really happened. It was not productive work time, and it was not enjoyable private time either. It was like nothing. So I had the conversation with my friend, and we were just like laughing a bit about the paradox of it all, and how funny the brain or the mind or whatever it might be that it's kind of originating from can be sometimes. And as I said, maybe again it is just me and my struggle, but at least then you can have a bit of a laugh listening to that about my struggles. And so as I said, we were having the conversation and we were talking back and forth about, okay, but how could I perhaps create clearer boundaries? Because the thing is, when there's not really boundaries between private and work, I'm not sure if some of you can perhaps relate to this, it feels like everything is kind of mixing, and there's no clear boundary on work and private, and quite often, at least for me, it feels like there's like nothing really happening, and there's not really quality on either. It's just like a bit of a in between thing. You're kind of in that limbo, not working, not really being on private either. Very little quality. It's just a lot of quantity, because the minutes, the hours, the days are sort of just passing. And so we were talking about how to make clearer boundaries, how to be clear on dedicate time for work, so that there would be a clearer time and boundary set for not working, having the private time. What is it that I want to be able to do with my private time? What is it that I'm missing right now? And why am I not getting that done? And so there was a few things there in the conversation where all of it kind of comes down to the boundary setting, and also the lovely habit hooking or habit stacking, depending on how you want to see it. So one thing that I've been trying to do for a bit of time, but that I have been wanting to do, is to start taking a morning walk. Super silly and small thing, I know, but for whatever reason, it hasn't become a regular thing. And so I've been playing around these last couple of weeks on how to kind of make it into something that is not up to good weather or am I in the mood, but just like, just fucking do it. Go for a walk. And so for me, there's two things in this that I'm kind of using to help me create this habit, because this is something I want to do. So the first one is the habit hooking or stacking. So for me, my morning always begins with a cup of coffee. That's like a given. And then after that, currently now, before breakfast, this is when I do my morning walk. So I have my cup of coffee, then I shower and get dressed, and then I go for my walk. And once my walk is completed, I have my breakfast. And this has been going on now for the last couple of weeks, and it's feeling like a pretty nice way of doing it. Last week I was in a training the entire week, and then was also the other kind of trick, or how to put it, that came in, which is stick to the schedule, but reduce the scope. Meaning, go for the morning walk, even if it can't be as long of a walk as you would want to, or that you think that you should do. So I kind of want to do around 30 minutes in the morning. That's not a lot, and it's not a little. But last week when I was in the training, some days I felt that I had a bit of a shorter time and so on. And then I went for a shorter walk. I went for a walk every day before my training began, but I perhaps went for 20 minutes or even 15 minutes only one day. But I went for the walk, and once I came home, I was like, good job. So those two things, the hooking the habit onto an already existing one, is like key to create new habits. And sticking to the schedule but reducing the scope is another one. Those two is what helps us create these habits. So hopefully that can be a bit of an inspiration if you are also struggling to create perhaps a new habit or a routine that you want to implement and that you feel that you're struggling a bit. Maybe think about how can you use those ones in your favor. What already existing habit do you have that you can then do before and then you hook the new habit on that. And also, instead of like skipping it one day because you don't have the time or you're not in the mood, it's like, do it anyway, stick to the schedule, but do smaller, shorter, easier, reduce the scope. Hopefully helpful, inspirational, otherwise maybe just a little good laugh at my struggles. It would be awesome to hear or read some of your struggles and realities. Maybe you kind of felt similarities, maybe not. Feel free to leave a comment, and I hope to see you perhaps next week. Bye!